The way most of us tell the parable of the prodigal son, we think it ends when the father's warm embrace surrounds the rebellious son who has returned home. But Jesus' most famous parable has a second act. Remember, the story began with a simple, telling sentence. A man had 2 sons. With the lost son having returned and to the father's embrace and with the band playing and the feast beginning, we now meet the older son, the obedient one. His story begins as the younger son's story concludes. The older son returns from the fields where he had been working, which is just where you expect an obedient, dutiful son to be, right? Doing what he's supposed to do. Jesus, the storyteller, does not disappoint. The older son hears the music playing. He sees caterers walking around with stacks of plates and cups. He stops one of the workers asking, "What's going on?" The news of the brother's return and his father's celebration infuriates him. He cannot believe his dad was throwing this party for his good-for-nothing brother. I don't know that Grayson could have done it better with stomping his foot upon that moment, right? So he refuses to go into the celebration. As news spreads and neighbors begin showing up, he paces in the courtyard. He refuses to go in and he scowls at the folks who are entering. Word reaches the father. The father that had sprang from his rocking chair on the front porch as soon as he caught sight of his younger son in the distance, and he ran as fast as his old legs would take him until finally he could give him a bear hug as they fell on the ground. Now, a couple hours later, he is going out again to his other son. The exchange does not start well. Bishop Desmond Tutu, in his book No Future Without Forgiveness, changed my mind how I thought about forgiveness. If you've read this book, you know that it's about South Africa's Truth and Reconciliation Commission, which was created after apartheid had ended and Nelson Mandela had been elected president. Tutu describes in the book some of the terrible, terrible things that were done during the days of apartheid to terrorize the native black population. Not only were thousands murdered, but many were murdered in agonizing, disturbing ways. It polarized that country in ways that our red state, blue state political division cannot fathom. Which is why it is so important for us to learn how to cultivate forgiveness for these days. If South Africa could be saved with all that they did, what could cultivating forgiveness do for us and our society and our churches and our nation? After Mandela's election, South Africa decided that it would offer amnesty to the perpetrators of apartheid crimes. However, amnesty would only be granted if you, in court, swore under oath and you told the truth about all the things that you had done. If you lied about it, if you didn't come forward and truthfully tell the whole thing, including all the people who had participated with you, then You could be tried for your crimes, and anything you had said would be used against you. Amnesty came at a price. You had to confess to everything you had done, and to everyone who had done it with you. Tutu's commentary about what they did forces us to ask, what is justice? It's a term we often use, but it has to be defined. Oftentimes we think of justice as kind of an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. But when somebody does terrible, severe crimes, there is no way that ever can be paid for. The way justice was done in South Africa was that justice and forgiveness were intertwined. Justice meant that those who had done evil deeds, they had to reveal what they did in front of everyone. Their family, people who loved them or respected them, now saw a different side of them. People they worked with saw what they had done. Neighbors saw what they had done. Those who had done evil were exposed through their own confessions. And victims' families finally heard what had happened to their loved ones. In the book, there's one woman who simply comes out and says, she goes, I have wondered so long what happened to my brother. I want to forgive, but I don't know who to forgive. Powerful stories are in this book. And Tutu, in talking about this, saw that this was the way that South Africa had to heal. Justice had to be with forgiveness. And the Truth and Reconciliation Commission saved that country from falling into revenge killings and civil war. Forgiveness gave South Africa a future. And that's how it changed my mind about forgiveness. Because, like many of us, I had often thought of forgiveness as simply something dealing with the past, forgiving past actions. I will often ask, as many of us do, does this person deserve forgiveness? This person who has hurt me, do they deserve my forgiveness? But that's the wrong question. Since forgiveness is about the future. You see, what's done is done. It's water under the bridge. And Guy Sales has helped tell us we're on a bridge right now. This congregation is on a bridge. And all the past things, they have gone under the water and they are out. Down the Ohio River, we're talking about one of these bridges that connect us across the river. Forgiveness is about whether you're going to have a future anymore with the person who has wronged you. Or maybe you're going to have any kind of a future of a life worth living for yourself. Or if you're going to hold on to that hurt, those big balloons, and have it to stain the rest of your life because you cannot let go of your hurt. Tutu's idea that there is no future without forgiveness rings as true in everyday life as it does for global and societal events. If we are going to cultivate forgiveness into our lives and into this church and into this society, we have to start by changing the question we ask from, does this person deserve forgiveness? To, what kind of future do I want? It's not just for the other person's sake that we should forgive. It's for our own sakes. The way Jesus told the story, I imagine that once the father got out to the courtroom where the son was stomping his foot and scowling at everybody who went inside the party to welcome his brother back, I imagine the father getting close to him and sitting down. But The older brother is not about to sin. The words in this section of the story jump off the page. The brother is incredulous. Listen, he says to his father. It's a word that puts down the father. The elder son, for the moment, is in charge, and the father must listen. The father sits and listens to his son's grievance. Listen! For all these years I've been working for you like a slave. He used the term of injustice, slave, to describe their relationship. He does not see the relationship anymore as father and son, but as slave and slave master. I have never disobeyed you, yet you have never given me even so much as a young goat, so that I might gather a few of my friends and celebrate together. The son's language is full of hurt and anger. He may have been a dutiful son, but he speaks coldly of their relationship. But when this son of yours returns, he says, the phrase son of yours is set like an expletive, and it notes the severed relationship between the two sibling rivals. The elder brother is no longer even acknowledging a relationship. The man who had returned is only the son to the father. He is nothing to the older son. The one who had devoured the father's money on prostitutes and drugs and alcohol and wild parties receives of all things upon his return but another party. Maybe one a little bit more reserved and legal, but nonetheless, it serves as an indictment. An indictment in the brother's eyes of his father and of his son. This is who they are, partiers. There is no future in this household right now in the story. In this older brother's mind, the younger brother has returned. He is being hugged and kissed by relatives and neighbors alike this very moment inside the house, while the older brother is outside, not even acknowledging a relationship with him anymore. He sees the father as a slave master who has enabled his drunken returned son to party on. And now the angry brother is the one giving commands. Listen, he commands his father. And his father obeys. Fred Luskin has been a researcher on forgiveness for decades and runs actually a forgiveness center on the campus of Stanford University in California. In his book, Forgive for Good, he talks about one woman who had attended one of his forgiveness seminars. And she approached him after the lecture of the Q&A section. She goes up to him to speak to him personally. And she talks about this person in her life, her mother, that she just could not forgive. And Luskin kind of returns to some of the points he had made in his lecture. And then she reveals one new piece of information. Her mother had been dead for 10 years. 10 years! And she was still holding on to all this anger. She still wouldn't forgive her mother. And who was all this anger hurting? Certainly it wasn't hurting her dead mother, right? If you imagine your life, imagine your emotional life, like a set of rooms in a house. Imagine how much room in your house you are willing to give to those who have hurt you. How much of that balloon that Katie shared with the kids, you allow that balloon to take more and more space in your home, your emotional home. We only have so much space, right, that our emotions can handle at one time. When we hold on to our hurts, our grudges, our bitter past, we are multiplying the pain that was first inflicted upon us. The event that first caused us pain is gone. Like the river's waters, it's gone under the bridge, and it's way down the riverway. However, if we do not forgive, if we do not allow that wound to begin healing, and every time we see that person, or every time we get in a similar situation, we open that wound up all over again, and it festers, and it festers, and it gets infected. And here's the most frustrating part. We give this person who has hurt us, we give them the power to continue to hurt us when we hold on to that anger. But we're the one giving the power to them. The event's long gone. Forgiveness, you see, removes the power that they have over us and empowers us to take control of our lives once again. We can't control what happens to us. So when people do things to us to hurt us, we are rightfully angry about that. We can't control that, but we can control how we will respond to that hurt. And forgiveness gives us a way of gaining the control back into our lives. I choose to forgive you, whether you deserve it or not. I'm choosing it for me. And some hurts, of course, do hold scars. Some hurts are deep in our lives. To forgive someone doesn't always mean there's going to be reconciliation. Some hurts are too tough to bring reconciliation. If a wife is physically abused by her husband, once freed from that terror, she may choose to forgive him to get her life back, to control of her life again, but no one should tell her she has to return. That is a dangerous situation that she probably should never do. To forgive does not always mean there's reconciliation. To forgive someone doesn't always mean you're going to forget it. To forgive and forget may be a rememberable saying, but it's not in the Bible. You can forgive, but sometimes it is impossible to forget. To forgive means that even if you do remember, you will not hold it against that person any longer. Maybe you remember a lot of other things in your relationship beyond that hurt. A lot of good things in the relationship. You'll remember that as well, and that is bigger than this hurt. To cultivate forgiveness, we have to start asking ourselves, how much emotional energy are we willing to spend on our hurt? Wouldn't it be better to let that go? To let the past go? And to spend your emotional energy on far more important things, on joyous things, on loving things, things that give you life, not things that suck the life out of you and drain you. One time, a mother in our congregation was struggling with her drug-addicted son, and she was meeting with me just to kind of process things, and she yelled at me in frustration, "Why is he doing this to me?" Of course, it wasn't about her, right? But he was caught in his own world of loneliness and isolation and hurt and addiction, and she couldn't see that because of all the hurt it had caused her. In time, she came to understand that what her son was doing was not about her. And just that separation, that it wasn't about her, was able to shift her mind. And she was able to forgive him and to reconcile and to become a strength, a refuge in his life again. Forgiving someone who has hurt you or wronged you may not bring happy reconciliation. It may not wipe away all the scars, but your forgiveness will give your future back to you, to empower you to let the past go and to live in the present. Whatever happened in the past between these two sibling rivals in Jesus' parable has driven a wedge between them. That's apparent in the story. And without forgiveness, there is no future in this household. The father invites his older son into the future. Son, he says, changing the narrative from the harsh word slave. Son, you're not a slave. You're my son. Son, you're always with me. The father reminds the older brother that they have been close. They have been together. Maybe especially since the younger son left, and then they didn't hear a word from him the whole time he was gone. Son, you are always with me, and I am always with you. And all that I have is yours. The father reminds the older brother about the deal the younger brother had made when he said, Dad, I wish you were dead. Give me what's my inheritance and I'm out of here. And the father cashes in some investment funds, sells some hard assets, maybe even takes a loan to give the younger son half of the property. And then he's gone. The father is reminding the older brother of that deal and how the deal has not changed. Because now everything that's left is the 50% that's left, and everything that's mine is yours. I remember the deal. I'm not going to change my mind and give your younger brother some more things. Everything I have is yours. Son, I'm always with you, and you are always with me, and everything I have is yours. The father is reminding him of the relationships, of how the past is setting up the future. Reestablishing their narrative has changing the way that the father can invite the older brother back to the future. But we had to celebrate, he says. We had to celebrate because this brother of yours, not just son of mine, but brother of yours, was dead, is now alive, was lost, and now found. The brother of yours, the father says, to his angry older son, reestablishes the relationship. The future is going to include the lost son, the prodigal son. The father is making that clear. If the older son wants to be a part of this future in this family and not stuck outside in the courtyard or in the fields working alone, he's going to have to forgive this brother of his. There is a sentence in the Lord's Prayer. We say it every week in worship. Forgive us as we forgive those who sinned against us or trespassed against us. This is a dangerous prayer, right? Forgive us, God, as much as I'm good at forgiving. I'll see next week some of y'all skip that line. Some might think it's kind of small of God to require us to forgive if we want to be forgiven. It makes it seem like faith is a transaction. But I don't think it's so much as God won't forgive unless we forgive, in as much it is, unless we work at forgiving others, we have no idea what forgiveness is about. Right? Until we've been hurt and we choose forgiveness and to let it go, we don't know what it's about. And people can forgive us. We can do things like that, and we have no idea what it means. God can forgive us, and we have no idea what it means until we begin forgiving others. And then we realize, That's what people are doing for me. That's what God is doing for me. Working at forgiving others might be seen as a selfish act. If you say, I can't forgive him, he doesn't deserve it, you've missed the point. The question is, do you deserve it? Do you deserve letting go of that anger? Do you deserve putting the past behind and creating a future? Do you deserve not holding a grudge? Do you deserve understanding the deep struggle and reward of forgiving someone so that when someone forgives you, when God forgives you, you fully and deeply receive it gladly as a gift? Without forgiveness, there is no future in a marriage. Without forgiveness, there is no future in parent-child relationships or sibling relationships. Without forgiveness, there is no future in friendships. Without forgiveness, there is no future for office staff or for business partnerships or for churches. Without forgiveness, there is no future for communities and societies and nations. Future is hard, yes. But not forgiving. I just said that wrong, didn't I? Forgiveness is hard, yes. But not forgiving is harder still. At the end of our Reader's Theater scripture reading, Hadley Murphy said, and that's where Jesus stopped, noting that while Jesus completed the parable, he didn't end the story. He left it open-ended. And then Hadley asked you, how do you think the story ends? What do you think? Did the older brother stay outside on the patio? Or did he finally come in? Maybe stay on the edge for a bit till he finally walks up to his brother and they hug. Or did he stay out there, stewing, scowling, while everyone else is having a great time? What do you think happens? This is important, because your answer might tell you how much you are cultivating forgiveness in your own life. Friends, forgive to give yourself a future. Amen.